Good afternoon. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Art Basel Awards Summit. If you're just joining us, my name is Colleen Milliard. I'll be your host this afternoon, and I'm delighted to be here to introduce a panel entitled, What Should Art Institutions Become? What a title, what a question, what a project. And to discuss this, we have a really stellar panel of institutional leaders, and a panel which makes even more sense, perhaps now more than ever, as we remember the memory of the late Koyo Kuo, who was a jury member of the Art Basel Awards and a very dear friend of the Art Basel family. So on stage, we have Fatima Bintou Rassoul SY, who is Director of Programs at Raw Material Company in Dakar. Welcome. Sophia Belsheim, who is a Director of Art Plus Practice in Los Angeles. Antonia Carver, the Director of Art Jameel in Dubai, and moderated by another great friend of the organization, Suhanya Raffel, the Director of M+ in Hong Kong. Please join me in giving this extraordinary panel a very warm welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. So we have this provocation, what should art institutions become? And we've been talking about it amongst ourselves, and we feel that becoming is an eternal journey. There is no end to it, and in fact, becoming is the best part of the work that we all do. And we have been, what's wonderful that this time with the Art Basel Awards is the recognition of many kinds of voices that make our work in the ecology of art and creativity essential. And the work of institutions and especially the non-for-profit independent institution is vital. And to have the three awardees from very different locations, very different cities, very different propositions that have made major inroads into their communities, and they're here to introduce those particular institutions to us. So I thought, given the context, given where we are, that we should give each of them the opportunity to speak about what they have done over, often from 12 to 20 years, over the last decade and a half, doing things that have changed the dial in terms of institution making in our time. So we're going to begin by asking Fatima to speak about Raw Material Company.
Salam alaikum. I'm really honored to be here today and to represent my colleagues, friends, sisters that are in Dakar now and probably following this from afar. So perhaps I would start to say that Koyo's laws is something that is very complicated for all of us. I mean the artistic community of the African continent, but also people around the world that were in contact with her, working with her, friends and colleagues to her. Koyo chose Dakar as one of her homelands because we discovered with her passing that actually she belongs to different geographies. She belongs to the entire world. But she settled in Dakar because she fell in love with this city. She arrived in Dakar in the mid-90s, and I think one of the reasons why she fell in love with this city was an artist and a very specific and particular being called Issa Samb Jowakam as its artist name. He was the founding member of the Laboratoire Agitart, and when Koyo arrived in Dakar, Joe is the one that welcomed her on this land. And the connection, the hospitality, the love and the care he demonstrated for her, her work, and her vision probably is the reason why a few months later she moved to this town. Last Saturday, we celebrate her. We celebrate her work and her legacy. The images are a bit small because I tried my best to bring everything in the screen, but the idea was for you to have a sense of what Raw Material Company is, because this is what Raw Material Company is, a space where people felt for each other, a space where people take care of each other, a space where the practice is very important, but the human beings are even more important. And the way we navigate this territory, this institution, this space, Dakar, and the world is part of that. So
Fatima, I'm going to ask,
Yes.
why did all of you decide to call it Raw Material Company?
Okay,
Looking at that slide.
Koyo used to say that raw material company, that a name is really a specific move for someone, a person and for an institution. So raw material company, when people think about it, they have the feeling that it's named after all this extractivism and gold mining. This is part of it, but the main and the most important part of raw is the gray matter. The raw material at raw are the human beings, are the people working there, the people on a daily basis making its programming, entering the space to research at the library, to have conversation with us, and to work with us on a daily basis. So this is where the name comes. And company for the fact that we work in company. We belong to cultures where there is no individual journey. You work collectively. You move in the world collectively. You're supported to do what you're doing collectively. So that's why also this say of hers were important. People are more important than things. And I think that she surrounded herself with a plethora young artists, researchers, curators that work in the space, that are with us, that I'm part of, and with whom she built Raw programming. One of those persons is Marie-Hélène and Marie Cissé. When she started Raw in 2008 as an itinerary project, and in 2011, when she settled the home, she started with two human beings. Marie Cissé, who is in this picture, I can't show you now, but she is just next to Delphine. And you have Marie-Hélène Pereira that many of you know, and they start Raw with Koyo, and they've been working together since more than 14 years now. And the people you see in this image are my colleagues, people that used to work at Raw, that still work at Raw, and that actually build the programming. I need just to stop a little bit on that, because it's important. We experienced three transitions. The first one was when Koyo left to go to South Africa in 2019. The second one was when Marie-Hélène left to continue her mission at the HKW in Berlin with Bonaventure. And now we are entering the biggest transition of our life. But I have to say that from the very beginning, I entered Raw in 2020. I'm very young to this institution. All of them has been involved in the programming. Even leaving, Marie-Hélène was our curatorial advisor. Koyo was still our artistic director, fundraising for us. Anna Karima supporting the communication and the digital. So you leave Raw physically, but you never leave really the family. We are here for you. We host your project and your program when you finally do whatever is interesting for you and important for you, and we move together with you in your journey as an artist, a researcher, or a curator. The team has evolved, so you have more people than that, but this was the picture where Koyo was, so yes. Here is an image of the Laboratoire Agitart. So Joachim, as I said, is the founding member of the Laboratoire Agitart, which is a collective of artists, filmmaker Djibril Diop Mambeti, pluridisciplinary artist Joachim and LHC, but also Youssoufa John, a dramaturge. And Laboratoire Agitart is the space where Koyo was spending her time when she arrived in Dakar in the mid-90s, working with them, thinking in collectivity, but also thinking about the artistic practice and the curatorial practice beyond the form, beyond the medium that is exposed and used, and engaging with several different kind of medium, but also narratives, and bringing into the reflection and into their practice elements of our culture, our ethnical identity, and the way these relate to which kind of practitioner we are. So this is our space, a very tiny house, but we have big dreams and a lot of ambition. So don't trust this image, it's bigger than that.
I guess the thing to say is that with all the three institutions here, the space is only one element of what the ambition and the purpose of these institutions are. So it's about a collective wisdom, it's about groups of artists, thinkers, practitioners, critical responses, as well as programs that are being put in place.
Yes.
Yeah.
there is something about the physical space, because as I said at the beginning, Row was an itinerary project. But at some point, it was needed to create shelter and to create a space where people can find themselves just getting into a library where they find the right resources and being in company of other people in order to build whatever they need to build. So the physical space was a need in Dakar. Dakar was a very dynamic art scene with a biennale, different infrastructure in terms of art since the 60s. But there is something specific about Row. It was seen as a space of critical thinking. And having people being there, journeying together, and really, really, really shifting the way we envision the curatorial practice and finding ways to mold what we are doing together and growing up together. So we all came in with different backgrounds. Certain are coming from the curatorial background. Some of us are bank administration like Koyo, some others are language interpretation. But the idea was for us to enter this space, and each generation of Row Amazon built its own programming. The programming needs to look like you. The programming needs to look like your history. If you're coming from the diaspora back in Dakar and you're struggling, Row going to show that this is not an easy journey. And traveling back and journeying back home is such a challenge. But if you're coming also from a more traditional, ritualistic background, then this needs to be existing in the programming. And the library is one of those spaces of expression. The content, the material that we have there are audio, books, film, different material that the artists bring, but it's also the shelter for people's archive. The main archive of Issasam is in the lab, it is at Row, but also the archive of the Vietnamese Senegalese community, I'm going to show you this project, is in this archive always, also.
Okay. So maybe we have another 2 minutes so that I can get over
Yes.
to Antonia. Keep going. Couple
Okay.
more.
So among the different projects and the different work we are doing, we have publication, which is central to the work we are doing. Because from the very beginning, I think Koyo understand that we need to have publication and books that relate to our history and what we are doing, and the way we're thinking through the curatorial practice, the artistic practice, but the way also we need to carry the history of the people we have. So through the different programming, be it the symposium, be it the academy, or the exhibition making, we did generate different publication, and these are elements that nourish our work, that nourish our program making, but that also influence the work of people in Dakar. Same here, among the pillar of our programming, you have the Fridays at Row, which are public program where we have people joining us on just every Friday to discuss. So we have debates, we have the Vox artists, we have Citéologies, which are programs around architecture and how we inhabit the city. We have the film club. That is a very important moment because we dig into what the filmmaking industry in Dakar is doing. So investing the archive of Ousmane Sembène and Djibril Diop Mambéty, but being also able to focus on what the new generation is creating. And this is what our crowd look like, because when we invest the space, this is our courtyard. We have people settling in the ground for the paint shows and for different kind of project or exhibition. Depending on the need of the program and the need of the people we are having in the space, we move from a setting. We can be sitting in the room as we can be lying down on the couch and just having a beautiful conversation. And I think the condition report was fundamental in the way the program was run at Row, because it was a way to actually check what we were doing in Dakar, but to do it in connection with our peers around the world. So the very first symposium was on institutional building on the African continent, and it was something like 2 years after the opening of the space. And we did something around art history in Africa with Mousse Ogushuku Nwezi, and we did also a symposium in Dakar on translocal parallelism, and this was the first time that the condition report moved. It's a way for us to be able to take the pulse of what is happening in the global majority, to inform what we're doing in Dakar from a more broader perspective, and this gives birth to publications that are not a sum up of what we're doing, or 1 minute, of what we're doing, but more a way to expand the space of the condition report in a publication. This was the last one, and actually this is a specific project because this condition report on a sense of place, displacement, replacement, non-placement, was made with the economist Felwine Sarr, and it was questioning our position as an institution in Dakar after 10 years of existence. And the idea was for us to understand how we can move forward after so many years of programming. And this symposium that we held in December informed the Raw Academy program that is actually running in Dakar with how they say, Felwine again, and a cohort of 10 fellows. So I don't have a lot of time now.
Oh, now you have run out of time.
Can you give me a 1 minute and I finish?
1 more minute.
Thank you, Antonia. And then, so this is the academy that is happening in Dakar, and I'm just going to talk about this project because it's important. The Raw Academy program is an experimental study program where we invite curators, researchers, and artists from all over the world, but focused on the African continent and its diaspora. So we invite them to reflect on their practice. It's not a space where we're going to deliver anything. It's not a space where we are asking them to produce anything. We help them thinking through their practice, and we find ways to make sure that they are equipped with the network they need, the resources they need, when they get out of this program, so that they can journey in the world with a cohort of people that are going to support their work, and a faculty, and a group of, a group of faculty that are going to be checking on them, because also this is what communities are about. So these are images of the last academy that is running. Actually, it's going to start back to, normally on Monday. And to make sure that this program won't stay just with what is happening in Dakar, we decided to create opportunities for the fellows to join us in international curatorial program where we are invited. So whichever an institution invites us to curate a show or to do an exhibition, we invite the fellow to do the job so that they get paid and they get also professionalized in what they are doing. And the Fellowship Awards, named after Koyo, is an extension of that.
Yes. Great.
Okay,
Thank
I'm going to pass it to Antonia.
Thank you,
coming
Fatima.
back
Thank you. So, Antonio, we'll go straight to you and tell us about Art Jameel and Dubai.
Thank you. Oh, it's such an honor and pleasure to be here as part of the awards in which such amazing colleagues. And I just wanted to sort of pick up just quickly before getting into Art Jameel about Koyo, and just, I think we all learned so much from her, and we're really thankful for that. And visiting Raw when you first opened and going to Dakar was really so instrumental in all our kind of thinking and between Dubai and Dakar. And I remember back, I think it's 2012, 2013, something like that, when I was at Art Dubai, we invited BC Silver, who's also very much missed, to curate a section of the fair around institutions and spaces in West Africa. And Koyo came as part of that with Raw. And it was this kind of real breakthrough moment for us in our thinking, where the reception for the works and for the booths from West Africa was so very different in Dubai to this kind of usual taking your work out from the Middle East and Africa and South Asia across, and sort of presenting within a kind of, post-neo-colonial binary kind of situation. But instead, it was very different to sort of think about the work in the context of Dubai and this kind of world of possibilities, as you said in Koyo's quote there, of this kind of South-South exchange and what that could be. So that kind of really shook up all our kind of thinking in the Gulf, and Koyo made a huge impression on us. So thank you to her for all that. So Art Jameel was founded around 25 years ago as an organization, independent organization based in the Middle East, one of very few in a landscape that tends to be dominated by the commercial and by government-led enterprises or initiatives. And we existed for a long time without institutions, instead working in collaboration with others. But in 2018, opened Jameel Art Center in Dubai, and then in 2021, Art Jameel in Jeddah. And each institution is very different from one another. They're really kind of thought of as kind of from the nature of the city itself. What does the city need, and how do we kind of respond to that? And before we opened Jameel Arts Centre, together with the team, we had a kind of project space in the city, just a one room of kind of 100 square meters to kind of think about what we wanted to do. And that kind of chance to really think in quite a utopian way about what it was to institute. What is the role of becoming, as you said, Suhanya? How do you hold on to that becoming? And how do you think about instituting as a kind of practice? And one of my colleagues in one of our sort of brainstorming sessions said, let's think about instituting almost as we would a practice, like an artist's practice, and allow ourselves to experiment, to fail, to kind of exchange, to collaborate, and to sort of continuously challenge ourselves to think in public and think with the public about what we want to do. So with this kind of utopian ideal in mind, we thought, how do we hang on to that once we've actually opened an institution and you find yourself thinking about how to keep the lights on and, HR and finance and legal, all this kind of stuff that is drags you down. How do we kind of keep that kind of sense of experimentation and the kind of laboratory feel about what an institution can be? And how do we stay true to this kind of Art Jameel mantra, which is all around the arts being absolutely fundamental to society and accessible to all, but without kind of, in any way, kind of diminishing the complexities around contemporary artists' work. And I think, we live and work in two cities, Dubai and Jeddah, that are very actively thinking about the future. There's a constant sort of future gazing and future kind of planning. But at the same time, and these are sort of cities and societies that have been through massive intergenerational shifts between parents, children, and grandparents, is absolutely seismic. But there are very few public spaces that are truly accessible to everybody where you can actually kind of debate these futures. So we kind of find that the arts really, really matter. They're places where big conversations take place, and one of very few places. So we don't take it as kind of lightly, that kind of role. So we started really thinking, well, our intent should be from day one. Like, how do we focus on an audience and make sure that the audiences from day one are absolutely central to what we want to do? How do we articulate that intent? So the first people into the building in 2018 were 400 school children. And we had our children's opening ahead of our public opening. And they were children typical of Dubai from every single kind of educational system, every single language and ethnicity that you can think of, all coming to the center. So we conducted tours that day. Every single member of the team gave tours, and we managed about 12 different languages for the kids. And afterwards, we asked, who'd ever met an artist or been in an art center before, and it was 90% that was their first time. So that kind of set the tone in a way for the way we wanted to work. And they got to meet incredible artists like Latif Al-Ani, a famous photographer, and Munira Al-Qadiri, and it was a kind of absolute kind of breakthrough moment and one of real kind of joy. And then the second opening was for the builders, the construction workers that made the building themselves. So we realized that for builders, whenever they're building a building, they obviously move on before it opens, right? So they quite often never see it finished and never have a chance to interact with it. So again, we did multiple tours of the building. It was kind of mixed blessings in a way, in that they were much more interested in the finishing on the corners of the buildings and and what the ceiling looked like than the art, but they got into the art as well. So it was such a cool day, and we did a big picnic outside. So that was for around 500 construction workers and builders that had worked all the way through. And we also made a point of, for the first year of the institution, we had all their names, every single person that had had anything to do with the building, across the front of the building as well. So they were kind of just trying to sort of think, what is our intent here? Who is our audience, and who owns this space and will own it going forward? Then just sort of, come on, button. Turning to the exhibitions program, this kind of idea of creating an exhibitions program that was based in very familiar, very urgent themes of our everyday, that would attract audiences through the kind of urgency and immediacy of those topics, and then being able to kind of get into them through contemporary artists' works, and really kind of putting at the front this idea of raising debate and creating space for discursive kind of experiences. So just as a couple of kind of examples, Age of You was an exhibition that was curated by Shimon Bazar, Hans-Ulrich Obrest, and Douglas Copeland, that looked at this kind of idea of the age of extremes and where we sit with kind of technologies and ourselves in today's world. Guest relations is another example of an exhibition that is part of a series that's curated by Murtaza Vali. And we began when we opened with an exhibition titled Crude, which looked at oil futures and oil archives. And again, being our first exhibition was really exciting because we, for the first week, we collaborated with all the local housing associations to invite everybody that lived within a 3-kilometer radius of the building, and we invited everybody in that first week. So again, mass audiences, but everybody's kind of immediacy of seeing things like Rayan Tabit's, the tap pipeline. You know, we all were in the galleries looking after the artworks, and every second person would say, the tap line, I know this. You know, my parents talked about this. This was on the news. I know all about this. So seeing that through the eyes, these kind of themes through the eyes of contemporary artists brought alive all this kind of immediacy, but in a way that enabled us to really dig deep and raise debate. Murtaza's second show was around a second kind of industry of the Gulf, which is hospitality and hotels. So we looked at the kind of tourism industry, hospitality and hotels, again, through the eyes of contemporary artists. I don't know how I'm doing for time. I can't remember.
I think you probably need to start wrapping it up.
Okay,
so that we can have a little bit more
So I'll fly
time
through.
for conversations. I know it's fascinating to see how people make your institutions, you know, especially when you have the opportunity to do it from beginning. And you know, unlike here in Basel with the Kunstmuseum that has 400 years of institution, there is something very enabling, and it's fresh to be able to say we can imagine it for now.
Yes.
So this is that imagining.
Totally. Well, mentioning now, I mean, this exhibition is on now, and it's 20 years of the Gazan Arts Collective, Eltika, and looking at their work. And, you know, we have a strong strand running through the program of thinking very much from the ground up in our region. And obviously we're going through a time of absolutely immense violence and grief and genocide in Palestine that is very, very close to all our audiences. So we felt addressing that through the works of artists and showing not only the works of the last 20 years that they've produced in Gaza, but also works from, one work was produced a week before the show and arrived on the day of the show. So right up to the minute of what's happening now. This is kind of very fundamental work for us because it's something that we can do in the Gulf that we perhaps can't do elsewhere. Suntion Molinos Gordo, this exhibition is on at the moment as well, incredible Spanish artist who's really kind of, responding to one of the horizontal themes that we have running through everything we do, which is around sustainability and ecologies. This idea that we sort of took from our utopian beginnings of thinking in public and thinking with the public manifests also in these kinds of recoveries of lost or underwritten histories. So this was a session that we did working with architects that were part of the kind of Iraqi scene but had to flee from during the Saddam era into different Gulf cities. So we brought them all back together in a reunion for the first time to talk about the architectural history of Iraq. Very much like you, our library is absolutely central. We keep calling it the brain, then we call it the heart. We don't know, but maybe it's both. Anyway, it's driving the whole kind of organism of the center and very much part of the thinking. And this kind of idea of research in public, sort of taking research out and delivering it to the public is very central. Night school, just another one of our kind of all walks of life. The children's programs take place everywhere. So our last spring arts camp was actually in the collection storage, which gave the conservators a bit of a heart attack, but all ended up fine. Youth is very, very important. So we run a youth assembly every year and they take over the building. And they kind of really keep us on our toes, thinking about everything. Just one very quick sort of idea of how we're thinking about multiplicities of ways of showing work. The last youth assembly, which just ended a couple of weeks ago, the youth asked to present their work in 3 languages, so Arabic and English, as is our usual, and then the third was their mother tongue. And 3 of them decided that their mother tongue was actually memes, and they would present their wall text in meme language. So that was pretty interesting as well, with the kind of new way of thinking about what is language. I think I'm way over time, so I'm going to sort of zoom ahead.
Yes.
Sophia. Sorry about this speed delivery.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be in conversation with these phenomenal artistic leaders. And we were talking backstage, it's unique to be representing an institution In my case, it's very much backed by an artist. His name's Mark Bradford, if you've ever heard of him. But again, it's an honor to be here from Los Angeles, and thank you for welcoming me. At Art in Practice, we believe access to contemporary art and vital social services should not be mutually exclusive. Our work is rooted in community care, cultural equity, and Black artistic futures. Our work started out of a hair salon. Mark was formerly a hairdresser, and his mother and him founded Foxe Hair, not Foxy, it's Foxe. And it was really the idea, Mark talks a lot. I was meeting with him prior to traveling here, and he said, why do we have to bring people to the mountain? Why can't we bring the mountain to the people? And so our organization, Art in Practice, was founded by Mark, his husband, Alan, who's very much a social activist. He's been involved in neighborhood councils in LA, and philanthropist and collector Eileen Harris Norton. It's truly an organization that represents their value system, but also their friendship. I joined in 2013, and at that point, it was really just an idea. We were trying to figure out what it would be, and it was very clear that it would be art, but that it also had to be practice as well. This is actually formerly our exhibition space where Mark purchased hair supplies, and it was really meaningful for him to be able to transform this space into this space. Often we talk about, we want people to be walking down the street, to come into our space, to feel seen, and also to see themselves on the walls. We have an exhibitions program that is, our mission is very much centered in, we provide free access to museum-curated contemporary art, and we support the needs of transition-age foster youth and refugee children, both locally and globally. This is Eileen, one of our founders as well. And we have public programs. Really, our work, it represents 3 pillars, and it's distinct in that they are various branches that sometimes combine, sometimes they don't. In the case of exhibitions, they're all free. They're organized by currently the California African American Museum, which is an amazing institution in Los Angeles that were in residency with us for 5 years. But then on the foster youth side, which really speaks to Alan's heart in wanting to address a need in the community, we partner with a nonprofit called First Place for Youth. And as Art in Practice was kind of coming together, we learned very quickly that we were not experts in foster care, and that why recreate the wheel and why not bring in those that do the work best. So First Place for Youth provides housing, education, and employment support, and we layer in our exposure to the arts, but we fund a $100,000 educational scholarship program. We also organize roundtable discussions with individuals like Bruno Mars or Anita Hill, really leaders in their fields of expertise, to welcoming them to college campuses so that they can really think about the possibility outside of foster care. Our third arm, which is our work with NUS Global, which is an NGO, we fund an early childhood education program in the Democratic Republic of the Congo and Zimbabwe. And this is very much connected to our long-term investment in displacement. Our exhibitions program reflects a deep commitment to centering the voices and experiences of the Black diaspora, honoring intergenerational legacies, and supporting experimental practices within a community-based context. We've organized over 26 exhibitions and worked with 7 museum institutions. This exhibition with Maren Hossinger is actually quite a meaningful show for us in that it was able to bridge our foster youth program. She welcomed young adults into the installation process. But beyond that, why this show is important for us is that it created a platform for Maren. Following her exhibition at AMP, she was picked up by a New York gallery. Maren has been practicing since the 70s, 80s, but because we created a platform, it kind of reignited the recognition, and that represents success for us. Currently on view, J. Yolande Daniels' To a Future Space-Time, which was partially exhibited at MoMA. So there's tremendous rigor in the work. And it's something we're very, very proud of. And it's great to join hands with an institution to kind of think thoughtfully about this. On the foster youth side, again, I kind of have to break it up because it's quite distinct. Art and then practice, we're kind of all over the place. But Transition-age foster youth in the United States are individuals between the ages of 18 to 24 that have been taken from their family. They either live with a relative in the case of kinship care, or they live in a state home, like a group home. So what so often happens, and what we identified, was that in South LA, our local high schools and middle schools are roughly 40% foster youth. So there's obviously very much a need. And what so often happens is that 60% become homeless or incarcerated. So we want to create a stopgap, and we think that starts with a safe place to rest your head. So by creating a safe home, then we can layer in support services. And we truly, this is very pragmatic. If it's exposure to art, that's fantastic, but we believe that someone needs a job so they can have coins in their pockets to be able to eat, but also to expand their mind through education. We've seen young people move from survival to self-determination, and one example of that was Priscilla, a former intern who worked at Art and Practice and then got an internship at Hauser and Wirth, and now she runs their public programs and events at Hauser and Wirth in Los Angeles. So that really, I think, it really shows a testament that when institutions offer access, but they can really offer real pipelines to leadership. Our early childhood education program started at roughly about 2 years ago as part of our 10th anniversary. Mark had been working with Nest Global at the US-Mexican border, and we wanted to expand this work into Africa. So we've spent over about $600,000 on this program to fund a clean water and food program in the Democratic Republic of the Congo and Zimbabwe, as well as pay for teacher salaries that are helping support children ages 0 to 3 years old, little babies, and then also all the program costs. This model is very much kind of responsive, as we are all aware that especially the Democratic Republic of the Congo is facing significant unrest. So the program remains adaptive and responding to the real-time needs of the children we serve. Thus far, we've sustained support of over 600 children over a 3-year period, and it's something that we're very proud to do. AMP really offers a different model of what an institution can be. It's one rooted in education, art, and equity. And we believe that contemporary art should not only be world-class, it should also be locally relevant, socially engaged, and open to those who have been historically excluded. As a private foundation, I also have to recognize that we have the ability to be nimble. We're artist-led. That's something that we do not apologize for, and it's something we're very proud of. We exist in and out of the art world, and our goal is to create a framework that will allow for change and growth to the people we serve. Mark very much likes to say that AMP was founded with Alan and Eileen to develop a model that would be pragmatic, adaptable, curious, and playful. This is very much how he approaches his studio, because if you believe, I believe, in what you believe in, then you should keep doing it. So again, it's such an honor to be in conversation with these amazing women. And I welcome you all to LA if you want to make the trek. And I invite further dialogue and collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you. So we've introduced these 3 incredible institutions, and I think one of the clear a spine that goes through all of them is about knowledge base, but also a sustainability around communities. Individual communities, very local, but serving those communities through creative projects. And I think the libraries that each of you have in your different ways is kind of a cue for that gathering around. I just wanted to ask each of you to maybe respond, to think about how you consider success with your institutions. Many of us do things, we fail, but at the same time, we also are very proud of the successes. But I just wanted to ask each of you how you would express that success. I'll start with you, Fatima.
Thank you, Suhanya. I said earlier that for us, success is when people get into the house and they felt something. It's about emotion, how people find themselves in this space, how they are sitting there, doesn't want to leave because of what is happening in this house. And it did happen to be during an exhibition called The Spectre of Ancestor Becoming, when we've been working with the Vietnamese Senegalese community of Dakar. All these people came into the space to see their history being respected and being visible. It's a silence community within Dakar. None of us know that actually there was this group of people with us, and everyone joined us to celebrate this community, seeing their family portrait, understanding what they've been going through since the Indochina War. It was with artist Tuan André Nguyen, and we were all crying. So it's not about the tears, it's more about what art can do to people.
Connection.
Yes. Thank you.
I mean, it's a beautiful way to say it, that emotion is how you say, we've made it work. Yeah.
That's so lovely, and I think we share a lot, all three of us. And I love the way that all of us refer to our spaces as home. You know, for people, I think that's really a very different way of thinking about institution building. Well, for us, I think a lot of, naturally, institutions and museums tend to fall into this idea of success around the two Fs. What was your footfall and how much did you fundraise? And to try and sort of move away from that, because that's not necessarily helpful in thinking about actual sort of, quality of experience. Yeah. So with our board, we kind of negotiated, because they kept saying everything has to, from the Jameel family, who have a long history of philanthropy, they really kept focusing on impact. What is the impact that the center can have? So we came up with this kind of formula, because boards love formulas, of kind of depth and breadth. So a kind of horizontal layering of impact that can come through audiences being able to see multiple exhibitions, to have multiple experiences. Everything we do is free, so people can keep coming back and back and back. And what does it mean for cities and communities to have art centres for the first time? And can you layer that kind of horizontal approach over time? And obviously the horizontal approach with impact comes to the fore in large-scale festivals. So we do big kind of festivals around ecology and youth and sort of careers in the arts, everything like that. But also the sort of depth of impact. So thinking about impact vertically. So how can I justify spending a chunk of budget on 15 people who do a youth assembly for a year, or night school for 20 people of, all walks of life? But if I can justify it by thinking about, if justify is the right word, about this depth of impact, have we really changed their world? Do they go out leaving the centre and seeing things differently? And I think it's very hard to measure that depth of impact, but the other day we went back to the first 3 cohorts from the night school and kind of surveyed them. And surprisingly, they all still have the WhatsApp group. They all talk to each other, and they meet up regularly and do walks through the city, thinking about how to see the city in a different way. So I thought, this has worked. We're onto something. So that kind of depth and breadth of impact, and shying away from just counting numbers and thinking instead about a kind of quality of experience and sparking something that makes somebody see their world differently as a participant rather than a passive observer is what we're kind of going for.
For us, it's really about meeting people where they are. In the context of art, we want people to be walking down the street, getting coffee, and they're like, oh, what's that? I'm going to pop in. And they are immediately captivated, and the language is accessible so that they're welcomed into the contemporary world that we so believe is culturally relevant, and exposure is key. On our foster youth side, it's really about creating a platform for our young people so that they can see a future for themselves beyond just the baseline. We have another young person who was in our program, and he went on. He never thought he thought he was going to become a social worker, because so often our young adults think about what they know. And we exposed him to photography, and he ended up going to Cal Arts, is now graduated, and he's a practicing photographer in Los Angeles. On the children's side, a lot of our littles have experienced significant trauma. And we had one instance in the Democratic Republic of the Congo where Moses had not smiled for a year. The definition of success is when he smiled, because he got the opportunity to be loved to practice his imagination, and to be in a space of safety. I think we all share the idea of home, but a platform of exposure and success is really when someone can smile and just see themselves and feel welcomed. We live in a very, very complicated world, and I question it every day. But I feel very privileged in that I work with folks that just want to create a platform for those to succeed, and that really defines success. However many people come in the exhibition space, we do track it, but at the end of the day, who cares?
So I think that question of care is something I want to go back to, because we have to wrap up now, because I think that was also something Koyo did. You know, it was always about care. And I think when we look at this question about what should art institutions become, I think to put into that, the root of that is that we are all about building institutions in our various spaces that build on this notion of care is something that we can take away. So I want to say thank you very much to all of you for coming, all of you for being with us, to listening to these 3 brilliant women doing amazing things. I mean, really changing the dial. So thank you and bravo.
Thank you.
Thank you, Suhanya. Thank you.